Hello station students. Today we are going to be learning how to create a 3-block assembly. This is slightly different from what you've done before. We will be using some of the 5 parts that you made. Particularly, you can see we'll be using the cube with hole, the half cylinder, and the triangle. We'll learn to import them as well as snap them to each other, possibly rotate them in particular directions that we might need. First off, I am showing you right now what our assembly will look like in the end. This is one view. If I rotate it from another perspective, you'll also see it from this side. These directions you can find in Schoology. I am going to use this as a reference, our 3-block assembly. These are the steps that you can go through to use if you want to open it up with this video also. Before we begin, I'm going to make sure that you guys have made each of our 5 parts groups. So each of the part is a group individually, as well as we are going to check to make sure we have all of our toolbars open. We've turned off our perspective on our camera, so it's at parallel projection, which is very important once we start doing these assembly activities, as well as you will also need your default tray open. So if we go and open our SketchUp, you can start a new project. We are going to name this project. If we go up to File, Save As, we always use Save As when we want to retitle something. We are going to name it 3-block assembly, and then make sure you add your Tech Lab number on it. Then save. You will know that it's finished saving once we have our title up at the top up here. Now, just to double check that we have those items in place, we have all of our toolbars in place right here. If you need to refer how to get back to our toolbars, that was in our first document, but you can also go up to View, Toolbars, if you need to add any of the toolbars you are missing. Most importantly, we want to make sure our camera view, instead of setting perspective, we want to turn on parallel projection. Make sure we check parallel projection. It changes our view slightly. That will be used better for how we are using our blocks. And we have our default tray over here if we need to add colors. Okay, so we are going to begin. First of all, we are going to need to import the 3 items that we are using. The first thing we are going to import, we're going up to File, Import. Remember, you can only import these if you've already made them. We are going to use our cube with hole. Now, if you import it, it's going to look very small compared to our 6-foot person in the image. Remember, these are only 1.5 inches. So if you zoom in, I always like to start my objects on the origin of our 3-axis line. So make sure you can kind of snap to the center there, click once, and then, so we have a better perspective, we're going to delete this person. So you have to go up and select your Select tool, click on the person once. That gives us some proportions, but we'll delete them. Now, there's our cube with hole. Next, we need to bring in is our triangle. So go up to File, Import, and find your triangle. And you can snap that to the line also. You will notice it has a dark blue box around it. That will indicate that you've created it as a group, so it's already grouped. And the last we're going to bring in, File, Import, is our half cylinder. And add that to our line. Now we have all 3 of our objects in place. Remember, I'm going to show you this. I forgot to show you. As you are importing, if you cannot see your items, you might need to change your drop down. If they are set to 3D files and you don't see anything that you've made, you might need to change that to SketchUp files. Alright, now we have our three objects. So we're going to leave our cube with hole as our base. We're going to leave that just as is in place. I'm going to pull up our picture just so we can see what we are doing next. The next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to add this triangle on the left-hand side of this box. Notice that this triangle is sloping down, and that's the direction that we'd still like to keep it. So now I'm going to go back to SketchUp. This is the triangle that we are using. Notice it's on its side. So the first thing we need to do is we need to rotate this triangle so it is sitting flat. Or to give us a better idea, I might move it over to the other side of our box because we want to snap this blue triangle to this blue side right over here. So if I grab my move tool, now when I move objects, I like to grab them from the corners so I have a point of reference. If you move an object from the center, it will move, but you have no point of reference on where you are placing it. So what I like to do is grab the corner so I know when I come over to this other side, I can snap that to the line just where I grabbed it on the corner. Now, if we pan over a little, now we can see a little better on how we need to rotate our cube, or I'm sorry, our triangle, to attach to our cube to the blue side. So what we need to do is first we need to rotate this triangle so it is sitting on a green side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, rotate it over to the left so it sits on this green side on the left hand side. Now in order to do that, we are going to use our rotate tool. So go select your rotate tool. You make sure you've first selected your triangle. So just because I moved it, it's already selected, but if it is not, grab your select tool, click on it so you have your triangle selected, then you can grab your move tool. Now the rotate tool. Now the trick with the rotate tool, you'll notice it has pulled out a compass. The color is blue on this compass. The blue compass represents it will be spinning this block around this blue axis line that you can see here. That's what the color of the compass means. If I put my compass up onto this block, notice it turns green. Now this block, when I rotate it, will be rotating around this green line, axis line right here. If I go to the other side of my object, got stuck 1 second. If I go to the other direction, my compass might change red, which means it is spinning around the red axis line. So that's what those colors mean when you are using your rotate tool. I am looking for a green compass because I'd like to spin this to the left. It's going to basically be spinning on a center line right through here, basically my green axis line. So if we put our compass on this face, it should turn green. I'm going to start by putting it down in the corner. I'm going to choose this corner because that's what I want it to pivot around. I'm going to click on that corner. I'm going to move over, click on the other corner, and now you'll see as I move my triangle and rotate it, it is pivoting around that first corner that I selected. Now you can carefully snap it to that line. If you are having trouble getting it in the right place, you'll notice if I move my mouse down over here next to the angle tool down here, it is keeping track the degrees in which this will rotate. So instead of rotating manually, if I just type in 90 degrees on my keyboard, it will show 90 degrees in that bottom right hand corner, and then I hit enter, it will automatically turn this box 90 degrees so I know it's perfectly flat. Now we've rotated it in the right direction, so it's sitting on our flat surface, but we still have one more rotation to make. I need to, if I look at this in a different perspective, I need to rotate this one more time so this green surface will be touching this blue surface. So if I grab my rotate tool again, now here you will notice I'm going to run into some issues, because if I'm trying to rotate an object that has a slanted face, I don't quite get the compass that I need. So rather than rotating from my top view, because when I'm looking from the top view, I see this red angled surface, I'm going to spin around and rotate. I'm going to just use my select tool because it's rotating a little funny, and I am going to orbit so I can see the bottom of this cube. Now I have a flat surface to work on, and I'm going to spin this cube to the right so this green surface is attached to this blue surface. So if I grab my rotate tool, I'm going to choose this corner. You will notice the compass already changes different colors depending on the axis. This time I want to spin this flat side to the right, so you're looking for a blue compass. That's if you made your triangle the same way that I did. I'm going to click on that corner, we'll click on this corner, and now you'll notice it'll start to spin with the direction I want, and I'm just going to type 90, enter, for it to finish spinning 90 degrees. If your block happens to spin the other direction, you can try typing negative 90 degrees, and it might spin the direction that we need. Now that I'm done orbiting, or I should say rotating, I'm going to grab my select tool and just kind of orbit around. Now I'm holding down my center mouse scroll wheel, clicking and holding. That's kind of the shortcut for me to orbit around. You can also just grab the orbit tool over here. So now I've got my green surface right here on my triangle, and I want to attach it to the blue surface. So I can now use my move tool. So with my triangle selected, I'm going to grab my blue tool, and I'm going to grab it from this corner, not the center, because if I grab it from the center, it's difficult to try and line up those two flat sides together because I don't really have a reference point. So instead, I'm going to grab it from this endpoint corner, and I'm able to move it, and it should snap right to the corner on the cube with hole there. Those two are perfectly aligned. If I zoom in, I'm not hanging over on the top or the bottom or the edge. So everything is set for that. I'm going to pause here before we go on to part 2. So you should have your cube with hole, your triangle. If I zoom out, we'll next be using our half cylinder and setting that up. Okay, students, we are now going to continue our 3-block assembly by attaching our half cylinder. Now, I'm going to go back to the picture just to refresh our memory. This is what we are trying to create. We've attached this triangle to the left side of this cube with hole. We now want to put up this half cylinder on top, and you'll notice the half cylinder, the flat side is flat against the cube with hole. So that should create one flat plane. The rounded part of our half cylinder is in towards the center, and it's directly opposite our triangle. So now we are going to go back to SketchUp, and we are going to do this. Now, I just so happen to be lucky looking at my half cylinder. it is facing the right direction. This flat side, green flat side, will be right on the same plane that this blue will on my cube with hole. If you have to rotate it, I'll show the people that have to rotate it how to go about doing that. First, let's move it a little closer. So I'm going to select it. You'll notice I have a bold blue box around my half cylinder, which indicates it has been grouped. I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm going to grab a corner and just move it straight back. Now, if your half cylinder is not facing the right way, you will need to rotate it around probably 180 degrees. If you need to do that, if you grab your rotate tool, I would do it from the top. You are looking for a blue compass, and if I click on one corner there and another corner there, it will spin around, or you could type 180. Now, that is not the direction that I want it to face. I did that only for the students that needed to rotate it, so I'm going to rotate this back. And I'm going to type 180 degrees. So now it is facing the right way. I'm going to get off my rotate tool with my selection tool. So now I want to easily move this on top of my cube with hole. I am going to, with this half cylinder selected, grab my move tool, come down here. Now remember, it's easiest if you grab a corner. I would suggest grabbing the bottom corner because it will be attaching to the block on the top part of the block. So I have two reference points. So if I click on that corner, I will move it up. And you can't quite tell where it is. You might have to zoom in, and you're going to have it snap right to that end point. Click to release, and now it looks like it's placed perfectly. So I'm going to grab my select tool or my orbit tool to orbit around a little. You can see that both of the flat planes are facing the right way. The circular side of my half cylinder is into the center. And that looks just like our picture. I am going to click on my Zoom Extents tool to recenter that. I'm going to click on my ISO view from the house to make sure I'm looking at it from the right way. It turned it a little too much, so I might orbit back so I can see all of the sides. There we go. And that is just how we want to take a snapshot or screenshot of our 3-block assembly. So make sure you hit print screen to put a picture of this into your notebook, and go up to File, Save, because we've already named it, to save this assembly. You are now done with your 3-block assembly and may go on to the next activity. Good luck.